Warning: the following broadcast may contain examples of individual freedom and stories of people who do not always conform with society. Individuals who listen are at risk of having independent thoughts, and they may engage in risky behaviors in pursuit of a really good time. Listeners of all ages should be aware that language used in this broadcast can cause feelings of rebellion and increase the risk of living life on two wheels and a road.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Two Wheels and a Road, where we're exploring the great roads of North America one ride at a time. To help guide us on this journey, I've got Cowboy here to my right.
Howdy, folks.
And I've got Wayne here to my left.
Welcome, everybody.
I'm Mo, and let's dive into today's ride. Today, we're going to Southern California's Inland Empire. We're going to be doing a nice little loop starting in Anaheim, going up to Mount Baldy along Glendora Ridge, which overlooks the city below, to the Glendora Reservoir, and then down Highway 57 to home. Tucked up in the hills in the eastern end of the Angeles National Forest, it's easy to forget that you're near millions of people as you ride through the surrounding mountains. There are also constant opportunities to stop at scenic viewpoints for pictures or take short hikes to explore the area.
And seeing the mountains right now with the snow caps on them, it's beautiful.
It is.
Just breathtaking.
It is. At the end of the canyon, we'll turn north on Chino Hills Parkway, a short ride through some residential areas, and then we'll get to the highlight, which you'll see coming around a sweeping curve above the 60 ramp, and you're going to get a full view of Mount Baldy and the mountain range across the valley.
Yeah, that's worth a stop to look just right there. It's beautiful this time of year.
It really is. A short ride across and down the freeway, we'll make our way to Richie's Diner, one of our favorites.
Don't pass that up.
That's right. Bring a good appetite. It's right off old Route 66, or as it's called now, Foothills Boulevard in Rancho Cucamonga.
Try the steak if you're there. It's really good. You'll smell it before you get into the place.
They even set up the smokers and the barbecue out
Right
in front
outside
of the restaurant. Yeah, so it's a great stop. After a good breakfast, we'll ride up through the tree-lined residential streets on Mountain Boulevard on our way to Mount Baldy. The road climbs up a canyon through a couple of short tunnels, and in the morning, you got to be careful because it's shady and can be cold or windy. As you approach the Buckhorn Lodge towards the top, you'll take a very sharp left turn and have a steep climb up Glendora Ridge Road. This is a 1.5-lane wide path with no painted center line that tracks the top of the ridge west. Road is narrow with sharp blind curves. Be extra careful to watch for oncoming traffic as cars and trucks will take over, and it can be a sudden shock if you come around a curve and there's a truck.
Well, Glen Ridge Road actually starts with a switchback.
Yeah.
It does. Actually, calling it a road is probably a little bit
That's generous.
generous.
Yeah, it's a cart path with an extra half a lane or something.
Yeah. This road loops all the way down to Azusa, but today we'll be turning off after about 12 miles and work our way deeper into the National Forest on Glendora Mountain Road. A nice ride down to the East Fork River, where we'll follow the San Gabriel River and to the reservoir. The road back down to the valley will follow along the reservoir and get great views until we eventually come out to the city down below.
You know, when you see that reservoir, it's like, who put this great big beautiful lake here and no houses around it? You know, it's kind of different.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's very scenic. Once down from the mountains, it's a good time for a quick gas stop break and then a short ride down the freeway home. It's a 115-mile ride, and with an 8 a.m. start, you should be back by about 1-ish, including time spent for great food at Richie's Diner. Also in today's episode, we're going to talk over a little route history, including what city is known for having trees and PhDs? What is the reason they built the Glendora Ridge Road? And why is there a bridge in the middle of the wilderness?
Bridge to nowhere? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's right.
That's another U-turn for us.
Yeah, it seems like California is building more and more of those. In the end, we'll join you back here with some notes from the road. All the maps from today's ride are available to download at twowheelsandaroad.com. Now it's time for a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk a little route history. Welcome back to Two Wheels and a Road, and now for a little route history. All right, we're headed to Mount Baldy. What a great ride we have coming up, and I have dug up some fantastic historical points for us to talk over.
All right.
Woo. All right. So, starting with the native tribes. So, an interesting thing here. Of course, just about everywhere you go in California, there were native tribes. We all know that. They've been here for like 10,000 years. Some tribes were here and then they got pushed out, and other tribes have been here forever. There's this tribe called the Tongva, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but the Tongva tribe basically inhabited the LA Basin, Inland Empire, Orange County area,
Really?
plus the Channel Islands. They were one of the most, when the Spanish got here, they were one of the most influential tribes in the entire area. They think over 100 villages.
Wow.
Just an incredibly successful area, which you imagine, I mean, they're seafaring, they get all their food and everything from the water. So a very prosperous area to live in.
Yeah.
Right? Beautiful weather.
All year round.
Yeah, all year round. They suffered extremely high mortality rates when the Europeans came from disease.
Oh.
And the entire Tongva society collapsed. They were also, because the society collapsed and they had such a high death rate from the disease, when the Americans won the Mexican-American War and took over, they negotiated with the Indian tribes for reservations. They were not represented.
Oh, really?
So they ended up not having a reservation.
Well, and think how big that was. If they went from the Channel Islands
Yep.
all the way to the Inland Empire and Orange County, that's a huge territory.
It's a huge territory, and they weren't represented.
Wow.
By 2008, there were only 1,700 people that actually claimed Tongvan ancestry. And this person that you're looking at here is the last known person that actually spoke the language.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
And
ask next, if they had their own language.
She passed away, and so there is no one that speaks the language that they spoke. Essentially, it's a really sad story. They were essentially wiped out.
Oh, that's sad. Yeah.
But their area, kind of the heartland of their area, is this whole area we're going through on this ride.
Wow.
So 10,000 years ago, canoeing across to the Channel Islands. Okay, that's pretty impressive.
That's a 30-mile canoe trip.
Yeah,
In its carved-out canoe.
That is brave right there. All right, so then of course the Spanish came and the missions. So the area we're going through, and of course each mission had a huge area that was allocated to it as its lands, and we're talking hundreds of square miles. Okay, for each mission.
Right.
Okay, so the area that we're going through was the Mission San Gabriel Archangel, which is essentially in LA, right? It's that mission. It was established as the fourth mission. The missions were all built by the Franciscan order, and it was often referred to as the godmother of the Pueblo of Los Angeles, back when Los Angeles was a little pueblo. The Franciscan order baptized over 25,000 local Tongvans. But the part of the issue, of course, was the priests tried to eliminate perceived ills in their culture. And they would take the children and put them through the monastery schools. And of course, that with the disease,
Right.
3 out of 4 children under the age of 2 would die in those schools. At the mission now, they estimate that there are over 6,000 buried in the cemetery there. Yeah.
Of that tribe.
Yep.
All that history and all that language opportunities gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just, very sad. So now, you kind of get into, and I wanted to talk because we always run across these really interesting characters.
There's
in
always
history.
one.
There's and now in this case, and it's really too, it's interesting because this is a family, and the family that was one of the founding families of Los Angeles. So, Antonio Maria Lugo. He was born in 1778, and he was actually born at a different mission, the Mission San Antonio de Padua, which was up by Monterey.
Oh, yeah.
He was born there. He was the 7th son of a soldier who served in Santa Barbara. So that soldier raised a family, and Antonio was born here. When the soldier, Antonio's dad, was discharged, he left Santa Barbara and settled his family in the Pueblo of Los Angeles.
Wow.
Antonio received the Rancho San Antonio, which was a grant of 29,000 acres in 1810. And so that was most of South Central Los
I
Angeles.
say 29,000 acres.
1,000 acres.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
And if you think of it too, that is some prime.
Yo,
That's
yeah.
like the
Yeah.
Los Angeles River Basin. Like that was good land. They, agriculture, ranch land. So we got 29,000 acres. Antonio did. He must have been quite an individual.
Let's put that. I'm sorry. Let's
Yeah.
put that in perspective for a second. 29,000 acres. Okay, 640 acres is 1 square mile. A mile by mile by mile by mile.
Yep.
640 acres. 29,000, and I can't. I'm not a
Those.
math magician, but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
that's a boatload of acres.
Yeah, that is a lot of land. So he had 7 children, and really was kind of a pillar of the Los Angeles community. His eldest son, who we will run across again in the history, was Jose del Carmen Lugo, and he was born in 1813. In 1816, Antonio served as the mayor of Los Angeles. He was
Oh,
the
wow.
first mayor of Los Angeles.
His son was this guy.
No. He
I'm sorry.
was
He was.
Antonio.
Oh,
Okay.
gotcha.
Yeah, the son was born in 1813, so his dad became mayor. So obviously they're very in with the
Right.
Yeah,
aristocratic crowd.
right.
That as much as it was, I mean, you're talking only a handful of people lived here. Like it wasn't like
29,000 acres talks.
So the
Yeah.
7 kids he could have voted himself in.
he probably did.
yeah.
So he had 5 sons and 3 daughters. His youngest daughter, who we really won't talk about again, but she married the first American mayor once the Mexican-American War. The first American mayor she was married to. So
Okay.
the family had a history of
Right.
the mayor being the mayor and
Mhm.
just huge landowners. All right, so then we run into another interesting character, Isaac Williams. So Isaac Williams was born in 1799 in Wyoming, Pennsylvania. He lived in Ohio and Missouri before he joined a fur trapping expedition to the Rockies in 1831. So by then he's in his 30s.
Right.
He goes to the Rockies fur trapping, and then he goes on another expedition to Taos, New Mexico, and then joined another expedition that came to Los Angeles, and he reached Los Angeles in 1832.
Well, he got around. If he was living today, he'd have a Harley.
What,
As much as he rode around.
what an adventurous life.
Yeah.
And at an early age, too.
At an early age, and so you're talking about somebody who has seen the world, you're adventurous, but
Right.
courageous.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
Good-
so
good
that
way.
comes into play in the history of this. So,
Okay.
so if you know the character of the guy, he remained as a merchant in Los Angeles and became known locally. So this was Mexican territory. They're speaking Spanish, so
Yeah.
he became known as Julian. And so they would call him not Isaac, Julian, Don
Okay.
Don Julio.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we like that guy.
He married Maria de Jesus Lugo, the second daughter of Antonio Lugo. So obviously he made an impression.
Sure.
You know, so he's marrying one of the biggest landowners around, his daughter.
But did they have a dowry? Wasn't that a dowry that the woman came with if you married him back then?
Well, we're getting to that.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they got married in 1839. Happy couple. She was 19 when they were married. And then the third character that is part of this whole thing is Benjamin Davis Wilson. So Benjamin Davis Wilson was born in 1811 in Tennessee. He was a trapper and eventually came west with an expedition. Seems like that's kind of the common way they came out here, and became the first permanent settler in the Riverside area.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah. He was known locally as Don Benito Wilson, and he acquired Rancho Europa, so it covered part of downtown Riverside. And so he was a landowner. And in 1844, he married his wife, who was a daughter of another major landowner. So you're getting the idea.
seeing a pattern here.
Yeah, seeing a pattern. The aristocratic crowd. And he married the owner of Rancho Canyon de Santa Ana, 13,000 acres, which was basically Orange County.
Okay.
So there was a guy who had that ranch. Don Benito was known for his experience with Indian relations. He apparently was the person, if you wanted to go and have a conversation with the local Indians, he was the guy that would go with you and be the intermediary because he was that respected by the Indians.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
And he was later served as the justice of the peace. So he's quite a character too.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's an honorable thing. What a good, I mean,
Well,
he got along with everybody.
and not only that, but think of all the pockets of different tribes there were in this area back then too. So to be able to do that.
Yep. So in 1841, so if you remember, Isaac Williams and Maria were married in 1839. So 2 years later, Antonio, the father, who was mayor of Los Angeles, he was awarded the Rancho Santa Ana del Chino, which was about 13,000 acres, and he gave the land grant to his new son-in-law, Isaac Williams. And he and Maria, who were working on building a family, they moved there. They had 3 kids, and by 1841, they had 3 kids, and a 4th one was on the way. And they built the first adobe house in Chino.
In Chino.
Yeah, in Chino. Now, in Spanish, Chino means curly, which they think it was like curly hair, which it translates roughly to Santa Ana of the curly hair, which they think had to do with the geography, the way the brush and everything were growing on the hillsides. And so now we kind of get to the sad part of this whole long story is in 1842, Maria died in childbirth. And left Williams on the ranch by himself, raising their 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. In 1842, Maria's oldest brother, you remember Jose del Carmen Lugo, was granted 35,000 acres in Rancho San Bernardino. It was basically the city of San Bernardino and also Yucaipa. It was that big, 35,000 acres. That became his, and he was one of the biggest landholders in the area.
Man, how'd you get in that group?
Yeah.
Well, they kept that land in the family, didn't they?
Yeah. And I would be happy with just 5 acres. So then the Mexican-American War broke out in 1846. So if you remember, Isaac, he lost his wife in 1842. This is 4 years later. They each have their land that they're ranching on. So, and this is kind of how it's an interesting thing because back then, Californians didn't so much think of themselves as Mexican as they thought of themselves as Californios.
Okay.
Which is, they were very, and it was considered Alta California, the upper area. They were Mexican. They had ties to the Mexican government, but they really had a strong culture of their local culture was California.
Very similar to Texas.
Very similar to Texas, yeah. So, but it would definitely with more of a lean towards Mexico. When the war broke out, a California mission or a militia was formed, and Jose Lugo, remember the 35,000 acre, the oldest son of Antonio, became one of the leaders of the militia. Some of the Indians accused some of the Californios of stealing horses, and they executed them.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And Jose led a force down there and massacred the entire village of Indians. It's called the Temecula Massacre. And so Jose had a bit of a mean streak,
I
I would
guess so.
say.
You didn't want to tick him off, obviously.
Yes, he was not the one like Wilson, who was the negotiator with the Indians.
Yeah.
He was more of the hammer. Yeah. So when the war broke out and all this, so you have the Californios, and you also had all these rumors flying around because they were worried about the Americans and which side the Americans were going to be on. And as you can see, there were many of these Americans had come here as trappers, traders, and they had married into local families, and everybody wondered where their allegiance would be.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of this is going on. Jose is down there massacring the Indians. The Californios have their militia, and at the same time, as chance would have it, Williams and Wilson and some of the other American landowners were all on a hunting expedition up in the mountains. And as luck would have it too, they used up most of their ammo hunting. And then decided that they needed to head back to their ranches, but started to feel like it was unsafe. So they decided to all go to Williams' place. This is important because we get to the Battle of Chino.
Okay.
Okay. So you have these, there were 24 Americans that all make their way to Williams' place, including Wilson. And then you have the Californios, who then are reinforced by another group. So you have about 50 of them with Jose that just massacred all the Indians on a tear to come over to attack the Americans, holed up at his brother-in-law's house.
Oh, boy.
Where his niece and nephew, and actually he had 2 nieces and 1 nephew, are in the house with Williams.
Wow.
Okay, because Williams has his kids there. When they got to the house, the Americans sort of, they're under siege. They don't have a whole lot of ammo, so there's not a lot of options. The gunfire breaks out, and one of the other local landowners, his son is killed. And unfortunately, it's a kid that everybody knew, respected, and liked. So the Californios now are all really upset. Yeah. And they catch the house on fire, set the house on fire. So it's burning. Williams is in there with his kids and the other 23 Americans, including Wilson. And Wilson wanted to keep fighting. He felt like they could break out and make, which you look at who the guy was and kind of, he was thinking his odds were good. Williams grabbed a white flag, went out and negotiated a surrender. So they took the Americans prisoner. The Californios were all really upset, and they took them out on the road and lined them up like they were going to execute them. And one of these California officers from Los Angeles, and there were a couple different accounts on who exactly, but they actually rode out in front of them as they were about to be shot with a firing squad, rode out in front of them and said that if they had to kill them, they had to kill their own officer first.
Wow.
And he stopped it. Yeah. And then they went back. Those 24 were eventually released. They all lived. The long story short is Wilson never forgave Williams for surrendering. And even later in life, they wanted to give Williams just an honor, and Wilson had it shot down because he held the grudge for the rest of his days.
Yeah. Well, but you had family on family.
Family on family.
That kind of makes Hatfields and McCoy's lightweight on this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're bringing out the white flag to talk to your cousin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally.
Exactly.
So when we go on the Chino Hills Parkway, this entire battle, his adobe house is right down the hill on your right-hand side. The adobe house isn't there anymore. There's a plaque. There's a historical plaque there, but it's right down on that hill overlooking where you can see across the valley and see Mount Baldy. Yeah. That's where this whole thing played out.
Wow.
So
what a history.
Yeah. Interesting thing. So then you kind of go through the eras of what happened in this whole area, and you're past the Mexican War. And then you have, as soon as the Americans have taken over, then you have homesteaders starting to come west.
Yeah, settlers.
Especially after the Civil War. As soon as the Civil War is over, then the first ones start coming over. The first permanent settlers after that were the Mormons and Lytle Creek, which we aren't going on today's ride, but is actually just the canyon on the other side of Mount Baldy.
Okay.
And that's where they have the shooting range, is
Yeah.
Lytle Creek, and there's a park back in there and everything. So the first permanent settlers set up in Lytle Creek in 1851. In 1859, up that Mount Baldy Canyon, 2 settlers who were very ingenious set up an ice house and began shipping and selling ice to Los Angeles
Oh,
that they would use to make ice cream.
wow. That's
Yeah.
smart.
I never thought in 1859 that they would be making ice cream in Los Angeles, but there was also a sawmill up that canyon in 1870, which was further north up Mount Baldy Lodge. We aren't going up there on this ride, but that stretch north of the lodge, there are several interesting historical things.
Wow.
It's kind of a windy road up there. So,
But the blocks of ice, they use that for refrigeration as well.
Yeah.
So
they would cut large blocks of ice, pack them in sawdust
mhm.
so that they wouldn't melt so fast, and then just stack them all in an ice house.
Head
And
down to
because too it was so high in elevation, the temperature stayed more moderate all year long.
Sure. Now, my family was homesteaders in Montana, and I heard stories of cutting ice off the Missouri River, and they said you could keep ice in Montana in a cellar. You could keep ice clear into July by
Wow.
packing it in straw and that. So
Wow.
you've got the same deal here, yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So then all water rights in 1882, all water rights in Mount Baldy Canyon were purchased by the San Antonio Water Company, and they're the ones that essentially then built all the dams. And they, I believe to this day, still own the rights for all the hydroelectric power.
They didn't sell out to Mulholland?
I don't think so. This photo here is actually hunters at the top of Mount Baldy on a hunting expedition in 1890.
Well, imagine what
took
that
a
was
picture.
back then. I mean, you look at it now, it's just, with a road and a half,
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
and what it could be.
Can you imagine what they hunted, though? I mean, there had to have been
Oh.
bear and probably elk and some nice bucks, deer come out of there and stuff.
Well, can you imagine the looks that you would get if you had a group like this with those rifles wandering through the area right now?
Yeah, right now.
Militia, baby.
Yeah. So then after that area where you have the homesteaders coming out, of course, then you have mining. Now, the gold rush happened in the 1850s, roughly.
Okay.
It was very delayed getting to this area. So it wasn't until the 1870s, 1880s that they started trying to mine for gold in the Mount Baldy area. The earliest recorded mine was in and this is, they didn't even say that there were mines there. They just recorded that there was a slide, and Jacob Skinner was killed in his mine. It's called the Hogback Slide, which is, we pass right by it as we're going up to Glendora Ridge Road.
Oh, okay.
And it slid right over his mine.
Oh,
So he was trapped in there. So if we dug into it, you'd probably find him.
Huh.
Hydraulic mining became a big thing, but in the 1890s, but eventually stopped because the water they couldn't control.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's too much, and
Yeah.
then you go for years where there's
so,
not
so
enough.
was a lot of gold pulled out of it?
No, they didn't have enough, and especially when you get to the hydraulic, there wasn't enough gold to justify it. It was, it just eventually they had to stop, and that's where you kind of get into more of the resort area where. In 1880s, they built a resort and campgrounds up there, and people, because they had started living in cities, they started to want to go out into the outdoors and go hiking and fishing and camping and all these things.
Yeah.
So they had cabins built up there. They sold cabins up there. By 1907, it became accessible to cars, so you could drive cars up Mount Baldy.
Wow.
And by that time, they had over 100 people per night in campgrounds.
Oh,
Wow.
no way.
So these people were out there and much earlier than I thought they ever were. But
Yeah, I wouldn't think of that either.
yeah. In 1908, the Forest Service began offering 99-year leases for cabins in Icehouse Canyon, and soon there were over 100 cabins that people got with 99-year leases.
Well, the leases have been up then.
Yep.
So here we are.
Yeah. So this photo that we're looking at here, I believe, is from 1920.
Okay.
And it's just people packed in the car heading up to the mountain to go camping and sightseeing.
So is that Glendora Ridge Road there?
That's Mount Baldy.
Oh, Mount Baldy. Okay.
Yep. And then we get to kind of the city, because now you're talking about the early 1900s. And Pomona College was created in 1889. This photo here is Teddy Roosevelt in 1903 came and gave a speech at Pomona College. And the city of Claremont, where the college is, it was renowned because they loved to plant trees. They would have a National Arbor Day, and they would plant trees. And when we're riding up that mountain boulevard, and then you have all those big old trees that's part of it. And so it became known as the city of trees and PhDs.
Wow. You don't hear about that, like the Arbor Day stuff anymore.
When we were kids, it was
you
kind
heard
of
it
a
all the time.
big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the trees that are there are those Dutch elm too.
Yeah.
And those have been devastated around the country, but now they haven't had the Dutch elm disease like they have everywhere else.
Mm.
And then about the same time, you had people looking. So the Rancho Santa Ana del Chino had been sold off by Williams' descendants for an average of about $1 an acre.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, hard to imagine $1 an acre, and the ranch, essentially the descendants didn't. That was it.
They just mined out
had
underneath it. It sounds like it.
13,000 acres, and after a few two generations, it was all gone.
Wow.
That's typical, though, that history pretty much says that old money by the third generation inherited is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they're looking at, and again, because the Inland Empire is growing up, you have more people in the area with smaller ranches. They needed a safe way to get to the coast, because that's where the harbor was. And so that's where they got into paving Carbon Canyon. That was the way to get back and forth back then.
Huh.
So that was okay. So paving Carbon Canyon would be the family in Riverside and San Bernardino getting to visit their relatives out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, visiting the relatives or trying to get goods to San Pedro, which was the major port.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or getting from the ocean anywhere in Orange County along the coast. But a lot of it was the port.
Yeah, imagine.
Yep. In flooding was, of course, always a thing. Washed out the road. And of course showed that they needed to pave it and have a permanent road because they relied on the road for trade.
And what year was this?
This is early 1900s. So now we're...
See, they had no idea back then they were building us a sweet route for our bikes.
A great biking road, didn't they?
Good job, guys.
And then this is the road to the coast. This is a picture of what it looked like before it was paved. It was just a 2-lane track.
But that's a good picture because it says it's got a great curve in it.
Yeah. Almost a Duluth road there.
Yep. So now, by May 1929, Los Angeles County had paved their part of Carbon Canyon. OC took longer, but back then OC was not very developed, so it just didn't have the resources like Los Angeles. And then eventually it became Carbon Canyon and opened the door. The reason why they put the prison on the other side in Chino was because they had a paved Carbon Canyon road. It was accessible. So it's part of the reason why it's there. Yeah, interesting. So, of course, there's always been flooding. But one of the worst floods that Los Angeles ever had was the flood of 1938. It had a couple of different consequences that we'll see on our ride. One, so even going back to the days of the mission, people knew that this area of California, it's like feast or famine with water. It's
Yeah.
you get these storms that come in and you get more water than you can handle and everything floods and then you don't get water for 10 years.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so they knew that San Gabriel Mission actually got flooded out when it first started and they had to move it to higher ground.
Okay.
So they had this history. February 27th, 1938 to March 1st, 2 Pacific storms hit Los Angeles and Orange County. It was one of the worst floods in history. 10 inches of rain in the valley in 5 days.
Wow.
And
That's a
32
year's worth.
and 32 inches of rain in the mountains.
Oh, boy.
32 inches of rain.
There's just no way to handle that. Even I don't know if you could handle that today.
That's unbelievable. I can't even imagine. And it's the worst damage LA, and part of it's because by this point it's been built up. It's a city.
Yeah.
It flooded. What they had, because they knew it flooded some, but nothing like this.
Right.
And so they had some flood control. This picture here is an actual view of where it jumped the flood control, and you can see where the river's supposed to go, and it's not going there. And so the worst of the damage was in LA. Now, to put it in comparison, the worst flood ever recorded that we have record of was 1862, which they say was even worse than this.
Really?
But this was pretty bad. One of the side effects was the bridge to nowhere. They were at the time building a road through so they could get through to the other side to Wrightwood through the mountains. And they had already built this bridge, and it was going to go right up that canyon until 32 inches of rain came pouring back down on them. And they decided that there was no way that this canyon could support a road long term.
Wow.
And so that's how you ended up with the bridge to nowhere. They stopped the project, and the bridge is still sitting there.
Wow.
Well, I think I read something not too long ago. They were going to use that as part of that road, that high-speed train to Vegas, weren't they? Okay, maybe not. Maybe I didn't read that.
But think about it, had that rain not washed that bridge out, I wonder if that'd have been a vein. I mean, that'd have been a start to more and more roads.
Yeah.
But
Oh, could you imagine the riding up there if that
oh
would have
my
lived?
gosh.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that would have been great, and it would have been great to have a quick way through to Wrightwood.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the interesting thing too was at the time, so they were learning more and more that not only water and how you deal with water in Southern California, one of the things is how the water comes out of the mountains in the canyons. And they actually had on the San Gabriel River several dams, and they noticed that the damage below those dams was half the damage anywhere else because they didn't have the dams.
Yep.
And so that's why they built and expanded the San Gabriel Reservoir, which is actually 4 different dams up that canyon and with various levels. And it really is not only hydroelectric, but flood control.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you get all those big rocks with liquid fraction. You
Oh,
know, it's
yeah.
like ball bearings running down the river.
Yeah. It's beautiful too, having the lake up there and the water,
Yes.
and you're coming down and twisty roads, and but it really is kind of a functional thing, and it's very different from the aqueduct and the taking
Yeah,
the water
completely
and that all. Just it's the mountains pouring water down on you, and you're trying to self-preservation.
Yeah.
You're trying to protect yourself. So, and then of course we get to Glendora Ridge Road. And as much as you look, with all the history of everything going on, there is no record as to why they built this road.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
And so it is called, there was a blog with a guy who was hiking, and he said that really it's just a road with no reason. And for whatever reason, they had a road. They think maybe it had something to do with providing like an escape route from
Yeah.
Mount Baldy.
Yeah.
But then why they paved it, and so it runs 12 miles from Mount Baldy Village to Glendora Mountain Road. And in those 12 miles, it has 234 curves.
Yeah, beautiful.
Which is, that.
Every one of them's enjoyable.
It really is.
But keep your eye on the road.
Yeah.
That is unbelievably hard on that road too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd find you for a while.
Probably not. Lane and a half wide with no center stripe.
No.
But it is a beautiful road.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, you got dirt on the road. You got all the aspects of a good canyon road there. Would be on your game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
You got slough and everything else coming down there, so it's a challenge, but it's fun.
Yep. Now it's time for a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk about our ride. Welcome back to Two Wheels and a Road, and we are out on location and in the beautiful on Glendora Ridge Road on our Mount Baldy. Yes, age and my memory starts going. So we're out on our Mount Baldy ride and just have had a fantastic day. I'm sure you all can see behind us this amazing view. We have
all the
had,
way around.
There's not a bad view right here at all, huh?
and there's no wind. It's about 70 some degrees. It's about the most perfect day that you could possibly have. So we started this morning. It was a nice cool, not cold, nice cool over, and then went up to Glendora to Carbon Canyon.
Carbon Canyon, yep.
And
Always a good one. Always a good one.
Carbon Canyon in my mind is a little underappreciated. Part of it is because it's so short.
Yeah.
You don't really want to ride out of your way to go for 10 miles?
Yeah, maybe
10 miles of
Yeah.
curves, and then it drops you back down into the city.
But it's 10 miles of nice blacktop right now. It's beautiful.
It
of
is.
curves and stuff.
It is, and I was thinking about it as we were riding. This is really the perfect Sunday morning ride.
Yeah.
Because you hit zero traffic. You come along, you do Carbon Canyon first, and you get those nice sweeping curves on a beautiful road, well-maintained road.
Yep.
And then it comes around the corner, and it opens up to the valley of the Inland Empire.
Oh, my gosh. Beautiful.
And really, you're kind of in the shadow of Mount Baldy the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep. It's funny because you don't really notice Mount Baldy until all of a sudden you do a ride called Mount Baldy.
And there it is, snow and everything, and it's right there.
And it is right there.
Well, and it's a stunning view. I mean, it's one of those, wow.
Yeah.
Where that, you come around the corner, and who put that mountain with all the snow on it?
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep.
That's so we come around the corner on Chino Hills Parkway. Got a great view, and then after that, it's kind of a gallop down the 60 to the 15, which was pretty short work. Yeah. And then we got to Richie's.
Yum.
And when we got there, there was hardly anybody when we got there. We got great service. We were in and out, and
always had good service and good food at Richie's.
Good food at Richie's.
And they're not promoting this. It's just they're good food, good service.
I'm amazed that they had the barbecue going. We got there for breakfast. And they had the barbecue going, and the wood smoke smell, and
smells are free.
Yeah,
I had the tri-tip. So there's nothing like a tri-tip and eggs and hash browns. That was so we were pretty happy there.
Well, Cowboy, what'd you have? That looked good. Right?
I had cinnamon roll French toast, and I'm telling you, it covered the plate.
Yeah,
it was absolutely great.
Yeah, so great breakfast. Then got back on the road. Headed up, and it's really a short ride from Richie's. You come down the 210 a little ways, and then Mountain Boulevard, and that's where we get to the City of Trees and PhDs.
And you know it when you roll in because you're met with trees right at the off-ramp.
Yep, Claremont. So
Claremont.
we headed up and just went right past, and you see you're getting closer and closer to Mount Baldy and the trees in the distance. And then we start the climb up. And it's a beautiful climb
it is.
Until you hit Buckhorn Lodge, which is right over this ridge right in front of us. You get there and you do that sudden left turn, which we have on film.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're on the lane and a half wide Glendora Ridge Road, which, and you think about it, you look around how pristine and how empty this all looks. I mean, there's a few hikers and stuff, but just on the other side of this ridge are 3 million people.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
And you can't even see it. You have no idea.
You can't hear them. You just once in a while a bike goes by or something, but it's beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you're anywhere in this area, this is absolutely a must.
This is the road
ride.
you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's,
remember the time we came up there? They had gusting winds,
oh yeah.
and we got to look. And I think it was on Baseline Road that we crossed. They had gusting winds, but when we turned around and looked back, we could literally see the wind had picked up the dirt and stuff of the road, and it looked like a vacuum hose for 20 miles. You could literally see the gusting wind.
That was amazing to me because I've never actually physically been able to see wind
Yeah.
until then.
Yeah.
Even dust storms and stuff we've been in, it wasn't like this. It was literally, you could see where the wind was coming down Cajon Pass and see the wind go into the valley.
Wild. Yeah.
And we were standing up here kind of in a sheltered spot.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Amazing.
But today there's no wind. Today's a great day. So we are going to pack it up. We are going to continue on this ride, and we will check in again down by the reservoirs.
We're going to enjoy looking around a little bit. I mean, there's just not very far above us. There's snow.
Yep.
Yet here we are, probably overdressed for the moment here. It's just taking it all in. It's beautiful up here.
And the other thing I will say that I think it's important with this ride is this is not a ride. I mean, the twisties are great, but this is not a ride to go fast.
No,
This
no,
is-
enjoy it.
Because of the views and
yeah.
everything, this is something where you want to definitely take your time and just soak it all in. Just a fantastic day.
Well, how many times have we rode this road? You know, and as we stop now and we're doing these talks along the road, we've learned more about this road.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Instead
Yeah.
of flying through it.
Finding the most scenic spot where we can sit and talk.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, all right, we will check in just a few minutes, and then we'll be back.
See ya.
Welcome back to Two Wheels and a Road. And here we are at our final stop
Yay.
on what a great day that we have had
Indeed.
so
Beautiful.
far. We're down right at the top of the San Gabriel Reservoir,
Yep.
which is multiple, and actually they look more like mud puddles.
Yeah, a lot of mud. Yeah.
We had this grand vision that we'd have this beautiful blue lake, thinking Lake Isabella.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
kind
we got the Mississippi River.
yeah,
But
and it's
the river was so blue and so crystal clear, the water,
yeah.
and then we come down here and it's like, what happened?
Yeah, no, it's so it's not scenic, so we are not there.
Yeah.
Instead, we chose beautiful view of Mount Baldy there.
Look at that.
Yay.
I mean,
Snow-covered
look at that.
Mount Baldy, very nice. So since our we packed up last time, nice ride down
Yeah.
Glendora Ridge
Glendora
Road.
Ridge.
The thing is, and I think you'll see it. I think we have film of a couple of times when coming around the curves, and there was a car right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how sudden that can happen. So that's one of the things to be careful of.
And crotch rockets.
And crotch
And
rockets.
crotch
Now
rockets.
what-
There was a whole group of them that was right there at the turn to San Gabriel Mountain Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What-
Cars
what-
and bikes.
What I learned out of that deal was 2 bikes on part of that road. 2 bikes will fit side by side pretty tight, but 3 if you close your eyes. That's what I learned.
It was, but very nice ride through there. Nice turns. That was one of the things about the that road is just the pace of it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't go too. You don't feel like you want to go too fast,
Yep.
but it's just very gentle curves. Which, when you get to San Gabriel Mountain Road, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Because then you got the serious switchbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And you're coming down the hill. That was a big group of sport bikes
Yeah.
that we saw
That
there.
was a bunch.
And
wasn't
they
it?
were trying to scoot.
Yeah.
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 No, we stopped just up the road and we were just chatting for a second, and I said, and I'll stand by it, that this is with the Route 66 outside of Oatman, the Snake I think it's called.
Yeah.
This will rival that easy.
Oh, yeah.
This to me, this is a much better ride than even Tail of the Dragon. It
Yeah.
just it's different scenery. You don't expect the same scenery. This is definitely, if you like Tail of the Dragon and stuff, this ride is worth it.
Oh, yeah. Scenery, there's not a lack of it. That's for sure.
The nice thing about this at this time of year is it's not so hot. Now, later in the summer, this will all turn brown.
Yeah.
There won't be any snow, and so it's not quite so scenic. Mount Baldy is bald at that point.
Yeah.
And we'll be riding along the coast somewhere.
And it'll be like 100 and some degrees down in here without a breath of fresh air.
Right.
So springtime, a spring Sunday
Indeed.
is a perfect time to do this ride. And it's so close to home. It's, you're home by like 1 or 2.
Yeah,
Easy.
exactly. Yeah.
Easy. So we came down Glendora Mountain Road, those nice switchbacks, little more technical, got to be kind of on your toes
Yeah.
as you're coming down. And then we got down to the East Fork,
Yep.
and then we crossed the river, came down, just beautiful. And the river, I mean, actually, there's quite a bit of water coming
There is
out
a
of the
lot
mountains.
of water coming out of there. There really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful water.
And you can see, too, that the Sunday activity for a lot of people is to come up here and do
Yeah.
picnics.
Yeah.
So there are tons of people at the pullouts. When it starts getting hotter, they'll actually take inner tubes and they'll sit in the water.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'm not sure I want to be downstream of everybody who's
Yeah.
but just a nice way to spend the day.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah,
you're not on a
yeah.
bike, they come out here and enjoy the outdoors. There is pretty much a steady stream of cars now heading up because now we're getting past the into the afternoon,
Yep.
Yep.
and so they're all coming up to enjoy the day, which is nice to see
Because
that.
we're heading out.
Yep.
Because we're heading out, yeah.
Yep. We're getting out.
And then we came down here and T-boned onto, and I'm forgetting the name of the road, but 39, and it runs all the way down to Sousa and
Right.
past the San Gabriel Reservoir. So it's going to be a beautiful ride the rest of the way. It's a nice little, like we said before, this is a Sunday ride.
Perfect.
It is.
You want to get up in the morning, beat the traffic, get out on a beautiful day, a spring type day, and I can't think of a better place to go.
Yep.
Easy pace, a lot of fun, just great ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just the only thing I could say is watch if you decide to pull off and see some scenery. Watch the pull-offs. Some of them can be on an angle that can be tough if you got a heavy bike. But other than that, do pull off at some and enjoy the view.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it before where I couldn't actually pull my bike back up last time because I parked at too much of an angle. This time I was not going to let that happen, so I probably herniated myself. We'll see later, but we did manage to get the bikes back up and on the road. So just a great ride, great day,
Fun
and
time.
so we will pack it up and we will see you all back in the studio for our ride recap.
Thanks for coming
Thanks.
along.
All right.
Safe travels.
Welcome back to Two Wheels in a Road, and here we are back in our studio. We just had a great ride out to Mount Baldy, Glendora Ridge.
Yep.
What a absolutely beautiful day. Good
Well,
food.
We couldn't have picked a better day to do it. I
Yeah.
mean, it was
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah,
We've
all
been
around.
lucky.
All around. Good food at Richie's.
Love Richie's.
Yep. In and out. Food was good. Like I get that big cinnamon roll French toast thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's a plate
Yeah.
unto itself. And then when you get the combo, I mean, you end up with 2 or 3 plates sitting in front of you.
That looked like a sugar high right there. Like,
Yeah, I carried my bike for a while on that one.
all the rest of the time, we're like, we can't keep up with Cowboy.
Whee!
Yeah, it was a great day. And so the last time we checked in, we were up there on San Gabriel Reservoir,
Yep.
where it was more like a mud puddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised how muddy that water was.
Well, especially coming down the river.
Yeah.
I mean, the river was a beautiful blue color.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was moving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's scooting. I mean, nice.
There was a lot of water.
Yeah.
There, even
Yeah.
for this time of year. Not sure exactly when this is going to get published, but we were riding it in May.
Yeah.
And there was still that time of year. There was tons of water in the river, tons of people around.
Yeah.
Sitting out when it gets hot, they sit out in the river, and then not much down in the reservoir.
Oh my gosh, it got nasty down there. It's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
once we packed up at that last location and then started headed down, we did run into a bit of an incident. Some sport bike a little bit before us had gone into the guardrail, and I didn't see the rider. I don't know if he was okay. He was in a car. There wasn't an ambulance there, but the bike was pretty banged up and there on the side of the road. And there were people directing traffic. There was a little bit of a traffic jam there. I don't think we got all that on film. I think actually the film, we stopped right as we're getting to the traffic jam, but that's what that was.
Well, remember there's like those 6 bikes I think it went by.
Yeah,
and they were lickety splitting, and I think that was the last bike actually.
I agree with you. He was gapped just a little, and probably at the top of his current skill set.
And his headlights, you could tell, was a little different bike than the other one. So
it's a reminder that any given day, if you exceed your limits of your ability or you have a mechanical malfunction, I mean, it can get you. Reach up that road will bite you.
Yeah. The other thing that I think it's a reminder is for this ride in particular, we started off in the morning and we're practically the only bikes out there.
Yeah.
And then by the time we're done with the ride, we're coming down that road and it's a nonstop traffic jam and the sport bikes are screaming around you. And a little more aggressively than probably is polite. But so this is a very good ride to do in the morning and then get off the hill and get home or go somewhere else where it's...
You have, so there's guys like us with our baggers. You've got the guys with the convertibles, the cars, and they're not wanting a hot rod through there. And then you have sport bikes. So you've got 3 different speeds on a 1.5-lane road. Everybody has to be patient, and everybody has to you got to stop and realize to enjoy the ride and look around a little bit. If it's just there for time trials, you got to get there early in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, that's well put. Get there for time trials.
Or the sport bikes could choose a different road. You think they do that?
Well, and there's pedal bikes on that road too. And boy, you were taking your life in your hands on that.
There's a lot of traffic. And in my opinion, and I'm no longer. I used to have a sport bike years and years and years ago, but no more. But in my opinion, there are better roads that they could go on. They could go up to Angeles Crest. There's better roads than that one.
Right.
So anyway, to each their own. It was a great ride, and then of course, we hit the traffic coming home, which is pretty much par for the course.
That's normal, right?
Yeah. Little lane splitting.
It wasn't super bad though. I mean, considering
keeps us in practice.
That's
exactly.
Right.
Close quarter combat.
Yeah.
Well, and we make it sound like doom and gloom, but it was still a good ride. I mean, it wasn't until we come down to the end, where that guy got in the wreck that now all of a sudden we're thinking back like, geez, Pete, everybody was real good on the road. Even when they come up behind us, we get over to the side, let them go through.
True.
So that's all you gotta do.
True. People were letting us by, and we were letting people by.
Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point.
That is true. All right, so our favorites. Why don't we start off? Wayne, you want to start off?
Well, I met an old guy up there, George, and he was a maintenance guy, up by, I can't think of that. It was a little campsite or something where the river was running through, and George gave me the history. There was a cave, but it had been rocked in. I mean, you could see. Remember, it was cement and everything. And I'm like, well, what kind of doorway is that? And he says that's a water runoff. And I mean, it looked like big enough for people to go up through there, but he says some people have gone up through there and got caught in water.
Really?
Yeah, and once you walk out that cave, it's a drop off.
Well, and he also mentioned that there could be a bear at the other end of that cave, and there's only one way out.
Yep, that's right. He got in there with a bear. Yep, there's a bear story in there.
There was, yeah.
Wow.
So mine would be old George.
Yeah, meeting George along the road.
Yeah,
that's awesome. How about you, Cowboy?
I think mine would be up there at the top, Glendora Ridge, and that. We pulled off there and did some filming, and the view. I mean, you've got a 3-way view, west, east, and north, and it's just breathtaking.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah. It makes you realize how fortunate we are.
Oh, we
we got some of the best roads out here.
Yeah.
And in every direction almost, it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, except west, you go to the ocean.
You can't go wrong. Yeah, any direction you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
I have one particular and it's a view that I got in my rear view mirror, and I also caught it on camera, and it was on Glendora Ridge, but it was looking back, and you could see Mount Baldy, snow-covered Mount Baldy behind you guys, riding the curves behind me.
Yeah.
And it was about as picture perfect as you could get, is that view. And at the time, of course, because I'm riding and I have a handful of bike as I'm going around the curves too and watching for those blind curves with the trucks coming at you. So I only got a glimpse of it, but I thought I knew what I saw. And then I got back and I looked it back on the camera, and the camera got the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, it's one of those, and I think so much of our riding always is you get these moments, and it's just, you want to hold on to that moment as long as you can.
Yeah.
And it's, your lifetime's kind of built up by stitching these moments together.
Yeah,
Isn't that the truth?
A picture for the living room.
Yeah.
I almost hate to say it, but I get every day now. I guess I've been photoing and riding long enough that every day I will get photo memories from my cell phone thing for umpteen years, and I get to live my life vicariously through. Oh, I remember I did that.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow! Look, I did that too.
No.
Yeah.
So yeah, those photos are so precious.
Absolutely. So it was a great ride.
Yes.
We had a good time.
Absolutely.
And highly recommend it for any that are in the area. And just look forward to getting back out there, and let's go on to the next ride.
Well,
Let's go ride motorcycles.
Yeah, that's the road. You ride it one way, turn around, ride it the other. It's like something different. Ride it a year later, everything changes.
Absolutely.
Still beautiful.
All right, and with that, we will be back in just a minute with some notes from the road. Welcome back to my notes from the road. As I was riding along the beautiful Glendora Ridge Road, it struck me how today we've lost sight of why the road was originally built. We've become so accustomed to so much information at the tips of our fingers that when I sat down to search, it seemed almost unbelievable that I couldn't find anything about such a beautiful road. Until eventually I stumbled on a blog where someone else had the same experience, and they came up with the perfect name, The Road Without a Reason. An aimless path on top of a mountain, not really going anywhere except to travel along the ridge and then drop back down into the city. As a matter of fact, if you wanted to, you could circle back through the city to Mount Baldy Road in one big loop, over and over again, looping across the top of the ridge and aimlessly traveling hundreds of miles through beautiful scenery without ever really going anywhere. And for some of us, that might almost be a perfect day. How many times are we on the road and people come up to us and ask us about our ride? Where are you going? What are we doing? Always assuming that we have to have a reason to be out on the road in the heat, the cold, and the rain. The secret that all of us share is that often time spent on the road doesn't need to have a reason. As Robert Louis Stevenson said, "For my part, I travel not to go anywhere, but to go. I travel for travel's sake. The great affair is to move." In all the rush of modern life with work, chores, responsibilities, it sometimes feels like we're on a treadmill, task-oriented with a mission and a goal and a reason each and every day for what we have to do, until we walk out and start up our bikes. Those of us who feel the pull of open spaces and the wide open road, those of us who feel the excitement of seeing an empty road stretch out into the distance, we aren't just excited about the destination, but instead it's the journey along the way that makes it so special. As J.R.R. Tolkien said, and Wayne loves to repeat, not all who wander are lost. Time on the road gives us the opportunity for adventure. Time on the road allows us to meet new people and make friends in other places. We see new sights, we try new food, we suffer hardships, and we give comfort to those we meet along the way who need our help. The road gives us an opportunity to travel with others, and over the miles we build friendships which can be forged into brotherhood and sisterhood. And it all starts, each and every day, with us throwing our legs over our bikes, starting our engines, and heading out. To some place, or maybe no place, without the slightest reason why. As Mark Twain said, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the ones you did. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Have a safe ride this weekend, and we'll see you next time on Two Wheels on the Road.
Come on, guys, let's ride.